19th century India presents a good inspectors. On one hand was the advice of the British power and its ever-increasing control, and on the other hand was the Indian society, which was riddled with many different, even social and cultural practices. In this circumstance, Indians, what compared, they were forced to go in words to reflect and trying to analyze why they had landed up in the situation. This analysis, diagnosis, and solutions that Indians came up with led to the development of social religious reform movements in India. These social religious reform movements not only crusaded against the evils of the society of the religion, but also became the crucible in which modern nationalist consciousness was forged in India, and that photo students of modern Indian history, it is crucial for us to understand the history of social religious reform movements in India, without which we cannot fully comprehend the development of our freedom struggle. Therefore, in this lecture, today's idea, what Ngozi in the modern Indian history CDEs today, will be discussing the context of social religious reform movements and the early efforts, especially under the leadership of Roger. I'm more than dry and each watch a little bit. Guess I'll go. Let's dive in and get stuff. First and foremost, let me just have the sport understood by all. If you do, your student saw me with a gun and says, liberty and important action. He's the only condition of life. Good old and well-being. Liberty in part and action is the only condition of life. Growth and well-being. When it does not exist, the man the least in the nation must go down. Suddenly with a gun and clearly is highlighting here the importance of liberty. That is that absence of police stream the ability for an individual to enjoy his life to the fullest, to develop his personality to its fullest potential. And this in many ways is at the goal of social religious reform movements. Case the even practices that had been entrenched over the centuries had had a stifling effect on the personality of Indians in those centuries, and consequently, we could not develop ourselves to the fullest possible extent, allowing the British shows other Western powers to interfere and establish the only herd in India. In this context, now let us try to understand what the specific conditions existing at that point of time. Let us first talk about the background of social religious reform movements in the 19th century. The first and most important factor, of course, is the establishment of the Western boom, the shell shock off of power that had come from 20,000 nautical miles away. The white British police had established its rule here in India. Despite being so few in numbers, they were able to control a subcontinent that was many times over the size of the motherland. The whole population of Britain at that time was less than 5% of the population in the Indian subcontinent. Yet they were able to control this huge landmass, an area which boasted of civilization history going back several millennia. Naturally, this gave a rough shock. But George, to Indians, it compared them to live look inwards and trying to find out what was wrong within them, which allowed the pretty sure to do this. This introspection led to the Board of Consciousness about backwardness and needs innovation that had crept in the Indian society. No doubt India had been a proud, very highly advanced civilization in earlier times, but over the centuries a lot of degeneration had crept in, and consequently this gave the opportunity for a more advanced civilization to come and establish a room or what Indians, this rule was a very, very interfering sort of food. The British U.S. believed in the idea of the white man's burden. The concept here means white man's burden, means that the white of, he says, have the responsibility of civilizing other races of the world in Asia and Africa, particularly the British, for considered themselves to be on a hired by the pedestal, with we Indians with the to spawn. So bloody off, civilizing Indians, many people in those times even had the attitude that these other brown and black races, what actually subhuman, and we would be civilizing them in this process. Naturally, this was enough rent for a civilization of that sort of antiquity like India. The hide you money that the British U.S. trying to establish, or what Indian minds to every means possible in every interaction of the British state, and Indians that headroom money was stressed upon the hedger. Money basically wanted to tell Indians that they are superior and Indians cannot fight and defeat them. This was based on the idea of racism, the way places in inherently being born with high. You would choose they were more intelligent, they were more model, and they were stronger and braver than Indians is what was being implied over here. In this process, the British as also tried.